Good morning. Well, it's very quiet on the roads at the moment. Just a few things to watch out for. In the Highlands, there are temporary traffic lights and a convoy on the A82 in both directions between Loch End and Inverness. In Springburn in Glasgow, one lane is closed on the A803 Springburn Road, both ways at Atlas Road for emergency repairs to a gas leak. And in Newcomnock in East Ayrshire, there are roadworks, a convoy system and temporary traffic lights on the A76 Pathhead, both ways between Lochview and Cairnhill Place. Finally, on Glasgow's subway system, Buchanan Street Station on the Inner Circle is closed today. A shuttle service is running between Buchanan Street and Hill Head and between Partick and Ibrox. 08000 92 95 88. That's our travel hotline.
Need some clarity on election issues? With 20 reporters across 40 Scottish declarations from Kirkwall in the north to Dumfries in the south, plus up-to-the-second coverage of the situation across the UK, BBC Radio Scotland is poised to bring you all the drama of election night as it happens. We're on air continuously from close of polls until, well, sometime the next day. And there's even more online at bbc.co.uk/Scotland election. Election night on BBC Radio Scotland, making it clear.
You're listening to Call K, and this morning we're talking about Lyme disease, a condition that I must admit I did not know anything about before this morning, but clearly a very interesting condition that can have some very serious side effects, long-term effects, and there's obviously some controversy over the treatment of it. I'm joined in the studio by Richard Baines, who compiled our investigation this morning, and Dr. Andrew Seaton, who has been involved in the treatment of Lyme disease. We're going to speak to Mike in just a second, but I'm going to go through a couple of the texts here. Lorna emailed to say, I think the problem is early symptoms are often mild and not recognised. My daughter had Lyme disease for 2.5 years before it was diagnosed by me. She's had a year off school and 1 month on IV. I take it that means intravenous antibiotics. What are the early symptoms, Dr. Seaton?
Well, the early symptoms, the classic symptoms are a rash, a very well demarcated circular rash. Sometimes a typical target lesion is seen, and that's usually around the site of the tick bite. Sometimes there is no rash. Sometimes there is no rash, which is a problem, and people can have mild flu-like symptoms. And then it's the later occurrence of joint pains or muscle pains that can alert people to it. So
is it easy to miss?
It can be easy to miss, yeah, that's fair to say. And it can be a self-limiting, and most of the time it is a self-limiting illness. The rash will resolve spontaneously, not necessarily with any antibiotics.
And would Lorna be right in saying that, if it's missed at those early stages, it can become more serious?
If it's missed in the early stages, it's possible that further symptoms can develop, like the joint symptoms and muscle type problems, and sometimes neurological problems.
Right. Okay. Well, let's speak to Mike in Bealdside. Good morning, Mike.
Hello there.
Good morning. I believe you contracted Lyme in America. Is that right?
Yeah, I was on my honeymoon back in August time and got bitten by a tick, and I didn't remove it properly and never really thought anything of it. And then I think a few months later I had a classic bullseye mark on my arm.
So that didn't come up until a few months later?
Yeah, it was probably, I noticed a mark on my arm but didn't really notice it that well because it was on the back of my arm.
Right.
And speaking to a friend whose father did a thesis on Lyme disease, he says, that's serious, you need to get into hospital pretty quick if you've got that, because one of her other friends couldn't walk with it and had to go into IV treatment. So I went up to Aberdeen Royal Infirmary and they kind of said, it's nothing, there's nothing wrong with you. You shouldn't read everything on the internet. And I said, I've been bitten by a tick and it looks like a bullseye.
Were you suffering any other symptoms at this point?
No, none at the time. I felt fine. And I think it was probably quite a mild amount of Lyme disease that I had at the beginning. And it really wasn't until probably a few weeks after that I went to another doctor and got a private blood test done, which came back saying that I had Lyme disease. I think the timing was quite slow because of Christmas and everything else. It wasn't until January time that I got confirmed with having Lyme disease, by which time I started to get sore heads. I was really fatigued in December time. And again, got the course of 4 weeks antibiotics.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, I'd been doing a lot of research on the internet and really went back to the private doctor at Albine and said, look, I want to have more antibiotics than just 4 weeks, and gave them some information from the think it was a Dr. Barascono in America,
Right.
who has a...
And presumably, first of all, that the course of 4 weeks that you got from the NHS you didn't feel was doing the job?
Well, I didn't actually go back to the NHS. I went to a private doctor immediately after the NHS said, don't believe anything that you read on the internet.
Right.
At which case I just ended up going to a private doctor paying £100 to get a blood test, which then came back saying that it was positive.
Did you have any concerns about that in itself, Mike, in that, and obviously I'm casting absolutely no aspersions over the private medical care, but, you're obviously entering a different world there. I mean, did it feel like the right thing to do to go very quickly to private care because you weren't getting the answer that you kind of wanted from NHS?
Yeah, I had a basic skin condition a year previously, which probably took about 6 weeks of trying to go back to my GP to sort out. To basically not getting sorted, and again I paid personally several £100s and got rectified within 4 weeks.
Right, okay.
So
what
feel
was...
that the NHS sometimes maybe treating too many people or don't care.
Right.
Do care, but the large numbers of people that they have to treat is maybe very difficult to focus on any one person in particular.
So what was the upshot of your Lyme disease experience then, Mike?
Well, I'm still being treated, and I'm actually a little bit worried now because I took antibiotics for a month. It seemed to feel much better. Took some antibiotics for another month, and I seem to have got symptoms coming back again. So we're now going to start another kind of 2 or 3 months treatment on antibiotics. But I've kind of got hand tremors and other things happening. So in conjunction with that, I've also been seeing a specialist holistic person in Aberdeen.
Right.
To try and get some non-medical things, herbal things to take as well. So.
Well, Mike, that's obviously a very concerning situation for you. We have established such kind of faith in our medical professions in this country over many decades that you expect to get sorted. So, I mean, it's incredibly worrying when you've got something that is going on and there's no obvious place to go. I mean, just as it happens, we have a text in from someone saying that my fiancée caught Lyme disease last year, had to battle against doctors to get antibiotic treatment. She's now had relative success through herbal medicine, so I'm not sure if that is a route to go or not. Let's speak to Mary in Fife. Morning, Mary.
Hello.
Morning, Mary. How are you?
Not too good.
Not too good? Why is that?
Because I've got Lyme disease.
Right. When did you get that, Mary?
I was bitten in September 2008.
Right, okay. So
I was bitten on this Thursday. I was ill on the Saturday, so the doctor on the Monday had the mark in my arm and refused treatment till she took a blood test. But I believe she should have given me treatment right away. I eventually got treatment after 5 weeks. By that time I had shooting pains all over my body and in my heart. And hoped it worked, but in April 2009 I started having severe headaches. I ended up with Bell's palsy, numb legs, focal seizures, and I saw somebody privately and I'm still on medication.
And, I mean, how can you be confident, Mary, that those very shocking symptoms are directly attributable to Lyme disease?